Good morning and welcome to the next workshop for the 30-day challenge. We're going to go ahead and get started in a few minutes. So hang tight. If you'd like to turn your camera off and stay muted, that would be great, but you're welcome to keep it on through the entirety of the presentation as well. So a few more instructions to come and we'll get started here in a few minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning. My name is Megan Schultz, and I welcome you to one of our sessions on networking, specifically talking about networking profiles and what the heck do you do with a networking profile once you've set it up. So welcome and thanks for joining us this morning. As I mentioned, my name is Megan Schultz, and I'm one of the assistant directors here in the Boerigter Center for Calling and Career. I've been at Hope about 5.5 years. And I look forward to sharing with you a little bit about my area of expertise this morning around networking. Our co-presenter this morning is Kelly Wolters. You may have known her as Kelly Arnold during her time at Hope. She's a class of 2019 graduate and a digital marketing project specialist at Herman Miller. She'll be able to introduce herself in a minute after we share what we're going to talk about today. So what are we going to talk about during today's workshop? We're going to go over different networking platforms at a high level. And this presentation is going to bookend when we did this past fall on how do you make those profiles. So we're just going to touch on the different profiles that you have available to you as a student that are free. And again, that's just going to be a really high level. If you want to dive into best practices as far as profile construction, please head into Handshake and schedule an appointment. I would love to work with you one-on-one to brand your profile. We're going to talk about why you should network. What's that? Why is that thing important? We've heard this word, but why should we do it? Informational interviewing, that's a part of the networking process. Kelly's going to share some networking best practices, and then there'll be plenty of time for question and answers. With that in mind, please use the chat button to submit any questions that you have throughout the entire presentation, and we'll have plenty of time at the end to get those answered. So with that, I would love to welcome Kelly Wolters to share a little bit about herself. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Wolters. As Megan said, I was Kelly Arnold when I was at Hope, graduated in 2019. A little bit about me. I live in Holland and originally from Ann Arbor before I came to Hope. And then fun fact, this past year in 2020, I not only got married, but also bought a house. So 2020 was crazy for a lot of people for different reasons. Those are some of the reasons it was crazy for me, but wouldn't trade it for the world. When I was at Hope, I majored in communication with a focus in digital marketing, minors in classical studies and leadership. I had an on-campus job at the Boerigter Center. For 3 of the 4 years I was at Hope, it was actually called the Career Development Center. I worked as a career advisor, so I helped students with tweaking their resume or any other questions they had related to pursuing internships or jobs after graduation. Outside of class at Hope, I was a president and member of my sorority, Dorian, Kappa Beta Phi sorority. I also was on Dream Team for Dance Marathon and took part in a digital humanities research program called Mellon Scholars. When I was at Hope, I had 4 different internships, first being social media and analytics intern for the University of Michigan, summer after my freshman year. And then summer after my sophomore year, I interned for a startup in town called Ringcam as their digital intern, as well as working for Hope's Public Affairs and Marketing Office, working on their social media. And then the summer before my senior year, I worked as a digital marketing intern for Herman Miller, which led into my current position today. I'm happy to be here with you all and excited to talk about the value of networking.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. And Kelly has dropped her link to her LinkedIn profile. Typically, we would say, hey, here's Kelly's email, but the purpose of today is to network. So we want you to network using different platforms. So Kelly dropped her LinkedIn account on there. So she welcomes you to connect with her after this presentation or in the
practice your new skills on me.
Awesome. So as we mentioned, high-level overview of different networking platforms. So the ones that we specifically work on in the Boerigter Center are LinkedIn, Handshake, and the Hope College Connection. If you haven't heard of the Hope College Connection, it's still fairly new, but a lot of great resources for you. And then you can use all of these as alumni as well. So if you are a senior getting ready to graduate and you're like, what the heck, I'm going to lose all these profiles and important resources, they are free for you as an alumni as well. So let's touch on LinkedIn. At the individual level, LinkedIn is used for professional networking and connecting. You might do a little job searching on this platform. There is a job search function, but there are a lot of stronger websites out there for that to really tailor as well. You can do research on a company. A lot of companies have different profiles that you can look at. And the company level, recruiters use LinkedIn to share not only company information, but to recruit prospective employees. One of the cool features that LinkedIn has that a lot of students don't realize is right there for them is Hope College has a LinkedIn page. From that LinkedIn page, if you click on the button that says alumni, that opens up a database of over 20,000 people, students and alumni of Hope that you can search for. You can tailor by geographic location, where they work, what they do, what they studied at Hope. So this is a great way to find connections. This database is fairly large because it crowdsources essentially once someone puts Hope College on their profile. You will be surprised the people you can find. People at Fortune 500 companies, senior vice presidents, to small local business owners as well, and everybody in between. This is great if you're not just looking for positions in West Michigan and you want to broaden your outreach. LinkedIn can be a great tool to find alumni willing to do that. With LinkedIn, you can message people directly as well. So this is a great way to find those different connections. Handshake. So Handshake is one you're probably using a lot with the 30-day challenge, but I think there's a lot of other things that people don't realize they can do inside Handshake. So at the individual level, you can actually network with employers and students. So you can reach out to people in the community. If you see that third button there, it says community, that have interned somewhere that maybe you're interested in. What if they work somewhere that you're also curious about? You can directly message people through Handshake, people being recruiters, HR professionals, alumni, and fellow students from all across the country. So community sources from all of the colleges and universities that use Handshake. So whether they're down the road at Calvin that interned there or out at UC Berkeley in California, if they use Handshake, you can be in that community and find basically reviews of those different companies and organizations that you might be trying to target. So that's a feature I don't think a lot of students use a ton, but there's a lot of value there. Handshake can also be used to sign up for events such as this, different networking opportunities like our Hope College Connection Live series we're running this semester. Great way to find jobs. I think the word jobs is misleading with Handshake. There are internships, full-time jobs, volunteer opportunities, local positions. Maybe you're looking to pick up some babysitting hours for some extra cash. There are a lot of different variety of positions inside Handshake. And then Handshake is your one-stop shop to make appointments with people like myself in the Boerigter Center. At the company level, employers can create Handshake profiles to share more about their organization, post positions to specific schools if they're maybe just trying to recruit at Hope or maybe 10 different schools. They can host events for students. So not only in the event section will you see things for the Boerigter Center, you'll also see companies like Target hosting info sessions or Herman Miller might be doing a presentation for the community and you want to get connected to learn more. And this is also where you can get connected to employers for our career fair. Our upcoming career fair coming up in 2 weeks is going to be hosted inside Handshake. So the biggest thing I can tell you with Handshake, make sure you fill out your profile. That way you can be connected right away for the career fair and reaching out to those future employers. And last but not least is the Hope College Connection. So you're going to go to connection.hope.edu and sign up for a student account. We convert you over to an alumni once you graduate. So once you have an account, you're golden. At the individual level, again, used for networking, but this is a great way to find advice. So alumni join this database to serve in multiple capacities. This could be information and advice around their fields, what they did with their major, calling and vocation, personal finance, mock interview help, resume feedback. Basically, all the services the Boerigter Center offers are replicated inside this system. It looks similar to LinkedIn, but there's also a map feature. So you can see alumni from all across the country, as well as internationally. We have like hundreds of people living abroad. You'd be very surprised. One difference with the Hope Connection is this system is available to current Hope parents. So maybe your roommate's parents are in here and they're willing to help you. These are people that want to surround you with support. People join this database to help and to give back, whereas some people might join LinkedIn for other professional purposes. So there is a really good chance when you're in the Hope Connection, when you reach out to somebody, they're going to respond and help you any way they can. At the employer level, these are people wanting to provide advice, guidance, mentorship. So it's a little bit about their company. And we will be featuring a new part of the system here in a couple of weeks, an employer database of alumni-owned companies as well. So that's a great networking tool to utilize as well. So if you have more questions about any of these profiles, please go into Handshake and schedule a resume, cover letter, or online networking appointment type, and we can go through in more detail how to use the filters and how to build your profiles. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kelly to talk about why should we network.
Thanks, Megan. So those are all really wonderful platforms to be working off of, but why should you even be on them in the first place, right? Sometimes I have friends who are already graduated with me asking me, should I make my LinkedIn now? Which kind of blows my mind. But yes, there are many, many reasons why you should be networking. First, might be clear to some, gain access to career opportunities. Whenever you meet someone new, not only do they know what they know from their own career, from their own path, from their own company, they have their own web of networks for people in places that you might not even know exist. So they might not work at your dream company, but they might know someone who does. So anytime you get to talk to someone new, you get access to opportunities that you would not have known about before. Second, you get to learn from real professionals. I know it can seem really intimidating to think about what you'll be doing day to day in your job post-grad. You don't really know what it looks like. And to be honest, sometimes unless you've done a job shadow or an internship of your own, you can't even imagine what your day-to-day work could entail. So getting to ask those questions from real professionals, whether it be, what does project management actually look like? What does it mean to be a software engineer? It could be any field you're interested in, and you could ask someone who's in the work on a daily basis, and they can give you exactly what you need to know to help inform your decisions in your time at Hope and post-grad. Third is build your confidence. So by putting yourself out there to meet new people, you get the chance to practice your skills and become more enabled to continue connecting and feel more empowered when you do so. Not everyone is a natural networker. In fact, most people don't really enjoy having to meet new people for the first time. It's intimidating. So by getting to practice this, you're really honing a skill that will serve you throughout your entire career.
Okay, so I always tell students that networking is a journey, and the first stop on that journey is doing some informational interviews. This is a soft landing, getting your feet wet to get that practice, and as Kelly mentioned, to build that confidence. So how do we ask for an informational interview? Well, you're first going to start by being on one of those platforms, or maybe a professor says, hey, like this recent grad would be perfect for you to connect with. Let me do an email introduction and you can take it from there. So no matter how you get connected with that person, the first thing you're going to want to do is one, thank them for their willingness to talk to you and make that ask. You want to keep them brief. People don't want a novel. They don't want your whole life story. Plus, you don't have anything to talk about by the time you get to the interview. So you just want to give them a little bit of taste of who you are. So the first thing you want to do is just introduce yourself. Then you want to be very clear and ask for the advice you're seeking. When you're reaching out to an alumni, and Kelly can probably share this too, they know why you're reaching out. They know that they're not going to say, oh, please give me a job, Kelly. They want to say, hey, Kelly, I'm really interested in learning about your experience at Herman Miller. So just be very direct. You can be very black and white about the ask itself. You don't need to beat around the bush. You don't have to be very vague. Just come out and be clear, concise with your ask. Have a hook if you can. Tell them why you're aspiring to be at their company, or maybe you had an internship in their field already and you're so excited to pursue that work. Have something that's interesting to show, hey, I could also add value to you, maybe as a future intern or a future employee. Most importantly, be considerate. This person's going to give up 30 minutes, 15 minutes, even an hour of their time or more over a course of a couple of months, weeks, you name it. Willing to open up doors. So always be considerate throughout the process. Thank you goes a long way. Being respectful of their time. Even in that first email, you could reach out and say, I'm available Monday, Wednesday, Friday after 4 o'clock if you're available. But also know, as college students, your schedule is very different from an alumni's. They're going to be working from 8 to 5 p.m. Some might have kids that they're picking up from daycare after. So just be considerate of time constraints and try to give them longer windows of time. Now, a lot of alums I talk to can always squeeze you in over their lunch break and very willing to do so. So giving them a lot of availability can be helpful in that first email. Plus, it saves you another email that you can get and be just straight to the point, super black and white, and get that conversation set up quicker. So as you see on this slide here, there's a sweet little example here of a reach out that you could do, asking for 20 minutes of their time. And be kind of tricky with this. 20 minutes does not seem like a lot of time versus 30 minutes. Now, 30 minutes isn't a lot of time to me, but for other people, that could be a full meeting. So 15, 20 minutes is less intimidating when you know you're probably going to talk to them a little bit longer as well. So again, be specific, be concise, and be considerate. And last but not least, follow up and be pleasantly persistent. If they don't reach back out to you in a timely way, which many alumni are at fault for, or maybe you're reaching out to somebody in the medical field right now, it's a little nutty. So I always say give them about a week's time, maybe 4 to 5 days-ish, and then reply and just say, hi, Kelly, I hope that you got my email and this finds you well. I'm still looking forward to connecting for an informational interview if you'd have the time. Doesn't have to be anything lengthy, doesn't have to be pushy, but just be pleasantly persistent and friendly. And then I would say if 2-3 weeks goes by and you haven't heard anything, move on to a different connection. You might find someone reaches back out in a month, which can happen, unfortunately. But most people will respond in a timely way, whether they can commit time to the informational interview or not. But being persistent is not a bad thing. It's not being pushy or disrespectful. It's just trying to connect with people that you need to, which is a part of the networking process and something you'll learn now in college and in the future too. So the interview itself, how do you go about preparing for one of these things? So Kelly has, said, yes, Megan, I'd be happy to talk with you about my job at Herman Miller. What the heck do you do next? First thing you're going to do is do a little bit of research. Now, Kelly is not expecting me to be an expert on what she does or an expert on Herman Miller, but she should want me to know a little bit about the company itself. I should know that Steelcase is one of their competitors. I should know that Herman Miller is a large furniture company. I should know the basics. I should know a little bit about what I want to do in that field and what interests me about digital marketing. The biggest faux pas I see a lot of students make is an alumni will ask them, well, what interests you about digital marketing? And you can't answer that. So you want to know a little bit about their field. Now, if you are a freshman or sophomore and you're still deciding on your major or your career path is a little unclear, it's totally okay to say that. I would say, hey, Kelly, I'm exploring 3 different types of industries. I haven't decided on a career path or major yet, and you're my first stop in that direction to just get more information. So help them help you by giving them a little bit of insight, but also do your research. Next, prepare your questions. Your average informational interview is going to be anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, depending on how much time that alum has to give to you, or even outside of alumni, anybody you're talking to. Um, so you're looking at anywhere from 5 to 10 questions to prepare. Now, you might not ask all of those questions, so always put them in order of priority to you. And you might come up with additional questions as conversation opens up. So you're not tied to these questions, but have kind of a good idea of what you want to do. One of my best pieces of advice is to share those questions with whoever you're talking to in advance. And in advance is at least 2 days prior. That way they know what you're most curious about. Maybe it's a question that they haven't gotten in a while and they need some time to think about. So this is really intentional and shows that you're really valuing their time. It's a great way to confirm your time with them as well. So you could say, hey, Kelly, looking forward to talking with you on Friday. Here are the questions I hope to ask you. And just to confirm, we have 1 o'clock on Friday. So it's a great time to just remind them if they have a busy schedule. Next, cement the connection. You can do that in multiple ways. One, following up. If Kelly says, hey, Megan, I got to reschedule, please reach out next week, follow up. If Kelly says, hey, can you reach back out to me in a couple of weeks? I got a big work project that came on my plate and I would still love to connect, but I just need a little bit more time. People aren't just trying to brush you off. That's not being West Michigan nice. They are sincerely busy and want to help, so follow up. If after your interview they say, hey, I would just love to keep connected with you and help you any way I can, why don't you check in with me in a month? They sincerely want you to do that, and they wouldn't say it if it wasn't the case. You can make these people mentors. So maybe I really hit it off with Kelly and she's been so beneficial to helping me and giving me feedback. Open up the conversation to, hey, Kelly, have you ever mentored a young professional? I would love just to stay connected and maybe check in more regularly with you towards my career aspirations. So many alumni, one, will be so honored and flattered by that and very willing to help. Use your resume as a go-to for additional advice. So maybe I'm trying to target a certain field. I might reach out to the alumni after the conversation and say, hey, Kelly, you provide so much great, valuable insight. I was wondering if you'd be willing to give me some feedback on my resume. Kelly might say, well, our company really looks for people who do some philanthropic stuff in their spare time. And it doesn't look like you have anything like that on your resume. That gives me an opportunity to be a better applicant and get inside information that I might not know just by looking at the company's website. So resume is a really valuable tool. Plus, you've just asked them to read your resume. So they could be passing it along to a colleague they might know or keep a copy of it for a future opportunity. So a lot of value can come out of a simple 15-minute informational interview.
Definitely. Megan had a lot of wonderful points, and I think even those examples are so helpful to see what it looks like to ask someone and what the questions could look like to ask. So making sure all those things are prepared for your interview is really important. I'm going to go over just a few best practices for while you're networking. The first few are actually ones that Megan has briefly touched on, but again, we're reemphasizing because they're that important. First, address your recipient professionally. So make sure you know what their title is and you check your spelling and you're just really certain to be detailed with your message. Second is, again, to follow through. Like Megan said, as an alumni myself, if I say, hey, this month's really busy for me, check back in with me in March or April, I sincerely mean it and I sincerely want to help. And that's how most people are going to be. So if that means for you putting a reminder in your phone or an event on your calendar so that you can remember, be sure to do it. Third, use these connection platforms not just as the place where you're having all of your conversation, but make sure to take your conversation off of there. It's a great place to start your conversation with one of these amazing connections, but ask, hey, when we have our conversation, can we do a Zoom call? Could we do a video chat on your preference of platform? Could we do a phone call? Taking it off of there shows them that you're willing to make that conversation longer term and you're serious in the long run. And next point, know yourself and your social energy. And I think this one's so huge. And Hope College does a great job of equipping students, especially in the more recent years, with the knowledge they need to know about their own strengths, their own weaknesses, their energy whenever they're in the classroom, out of the classroom, et cetera. And this plays right into networking. So for this example specifically, if you know you're an introvert and you know even a 15-minute conversation is going to drain you of your energy, and it's going to be hard to be your best self if you're not fully rested beforehand, do what you need to do. Take a few minutes, make sure that you're setting it up for a time that you can be your best self, and know that afterwards you might be a little tired, and that's okay. On the other hand, if you're an extrovert, I'm totally an extrovert, so I'm in that camp. Make sure to have your points ready so that even if you're energized by the conversation, you don't lose track of what you're there for along the way. So keep that in mind whenever you're going into your networking opportunities. Next point, reach back out if your connection was helpful. Megan actually reminded me of this when we were putting together this slide deck. If you reached out to someone and they connected you to an internship or job opportunity that you would not have known about if it weren't for them, and you end up applying and secure that opportunity, man, would that person love to know that. They'd love to be part of celebrating your success. And more so, that person's even more incentivized to stay engaged with your career journey for the long run. So be sure to let those people know if those things end up working out that they connected you to. And last but not least, for best practices, remember that networking is a two-way street. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. You are a young professional entering the working world, and let's say you end up working at a company for a few years that your original connection wants to actually work at or learn more about. Because you've established this relationship with them, they might reach back out to you and say, hey, Megan, I see you work at Hope College. I'd love to learn more about Hope College. Could we, meet up sometime? You could offer them really helpful and beneficial information down the road. And so just remember that you have things to offer to them as well. And this could be something that goes on far past this. So that's a great benefit for both of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Great piece of advice. So let's hear what questions you have. So I'll give you some time to think. So please drop those into the chat. But Kelly, I just have an original question for you. Being a younger grad, you've kind of been through this networking process a little bit, not as far out as someone like myself or some of my colleagues. Knowing what you know now about networking and its importance, what is one thing you wish you would have done while still at Hope?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll start answering that question by saying, when I was an intern at Herman Miller, I made a practice to meet someone new within the company every week. So my internship was 12 weeks-ish maybe. And I'd meet someone, ask them a few questions about their journey, how they got there, what their role was. And then I'd ask, at the end of my conversation, I would ask them who I should talk to next. And it created this awesome chain of people. And some of those people, gosh, I don't even remember very much about them, but some of them are people who I still work with today. And so going on off of that, I'd say when I was a student, I wish I would have done that more around Hope College even, and taken that liberty of myself to say, hey, Megan, who's someone within Hope College that you don't think I already know that I should know or that I should talk to, right? I probably did a little more of that towards my junior and senior year when I was looking forward to finding a job post-grad. But even though Hope College feels small, there's so many people you don't know still, and asking around for, hey, this is my interest. Who should I be talking to about this? Do you know someone who majored in this and is doing this, right? That would have been a really great practice to not only practice networking skills, but to meet people who could further on my career in ways that I would not have known.
Awesome. So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat just yet, so we'll give you some time to keep thinking. This can be a tough process, so it might be a little bit harder to think of a question, but I think one of the things that I can mention too is it's never too early to start networking. I meet with a lot of juniors and seniors that are maybe doing this for the first time, which is awesome. You're putting yourself out there. I encourage that. But if you were a freshman or a sophomore, start networking now. You can practice on your friends. When you're joining a club for the first time, those are many networking opportunities, especially when people are bringing in presenters or speakers. Even in a virtual setting, you can still network, get people's contact information, just like Kelly said, to have those conversations offline. If you attend a speaker during your time at Hope, like we've got an awesome Black History Month speaker coming up, if you can get his contact information and reach out to him on LinkedIn or via email, I would say, hey, like, thanks so much for coming to Hope. I really enjoyed blank part of your presentation, and I'm curious to learn more. You can reach back out and have those fruitful conversations. So soft landing to practice now through clubs, or even Kelly, maybe you could talk into like networking through your Greek system, being a part of a sorority.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think even just following like the girls who I was in my sorority with at Hope, and now, right, there's that generational thing of generation being the different years. People who were seniors when I was a freshman are how much further ahead in their careers doing a whole slew of things. So reaching out to any of them, if I were to consider a change in what kind of job I was doing, or even moving to a different city, like there's so many wonderful connections through the Greek life system. And I was going to mention as well, just earlier today, as an alum myself, I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and I think I saw this article from Salesforce about like, oh, something about the future of the office, and something about um, how they're enabling their employees to work remotely. I thought that was really interesting. I was like, do we have any Hope alum that work for Salesforce? Like, I'd be really curious what it's like to work there. They seem very innovative, just out of my own curiosity, right? I like my job. I love Herman Miller. I just wanted to know. And I looked at their LinkedIn page, and I used the alumni or people search tool within the job or within the company for Salesforce, and found that there's a recent Hope alum who's a senior recruiter there. And so I just messaged her this morning, and I was like, hey, I would just love to chat and learn more about what it's like they're working for you. Like, I'm a Hope alum too, and would just love to learn more if you're willing to share your time. Like, so not any pointed direction, but genuinely curious what it's like to work for another big company, because I've loved working for Herman Miller and its size, and I just wanted to know. So it doesn't have, like, especially post grad, if you're like, hey, I just want to continue learning, continue growing and meeting new people. That's what networking's there for too.
Yeah, I think professional development is something that we don't automatically associate with networking. So that's a really good point. So let me have our first question in the chat. It's from Emma, and she said, when networking in person, how do you recommend beginning a conversation with somebody? Emma, I am an introvert. This scares me to this day. But the biggest thing that you can do is first smile and be yourself. Take a deep breath, walk up to whoever. A lot of the networking stuff that you'll see, there's going to be a time for introductions, or there's at least going to be somebody with a name tag and their company on it. So if I were to walk up to Kelly, I would simply start with a smile and a handshake and say, hey, Kelly, my name's Megan Schell, and I work at Hope College. I see you work at Herman Miller, and then insert question. Now, as an introvert, I prepare those questions in advance. I have like the art of small talk just running in my mind a little bit, and it won't come off rehearsed, but I just kind of have an opener. So you've probably heard the term elevator pitch before, of where you're introducing yourself to a recruiter. I've coined the term, this is totally non-official, a social elevator pitch of, hi, I'm Megan Schell, here's where I work, and here's what I do. Why are you attending today's event? Would be a great question to start with. Or what brought you here today? Simple as, what do you do for a living, can be a great way to open up those conversations. So look up different starters or practice those different starters, something that feels like you. Now, you're probably not going to want to have a super out there question like, what's your favorite color? That doesn't make sense. So try to associate it with the event or the purpose for attending. But the biggest thing is smile and be yourself. But Kelly, I don't know if you have anything you want to add there.
No, I think those are great points. Definitely, if it makes you nervous to start a conversation with someone like that, have some go-to questions in your mind that you can pull from that are generic and can, match any certain scenario. And Megan has a good point too, of if you're at a specific networking event or something that's related to, looking for jobs or internships or connecting within Hope College, anyone there is going to be happy to talk to you. So there's hopefully a little less pressure there because everyone's there expecting that you'll come up to them. But if you're looking to take advantage of another kind of event that might not necessarily be for networking explicitly, but you still want to make those connections, like kudos to you, because that's the bold move that people are going to remember, first of all. And second of all, just know that 9 times out of 10, that person will be excited to talk to you too. So just go in with the assumption that that person wants to talk to you as well, and go for it.
Another cool strategy I've heard and recommended in the past is if you can get a list of who's attending prior. So like at the Boerigter Center, we know which alumni have signed up to register for the event. Get that list in advance of people's names and job titles, and maybe just do a little bit of research of, oh, Megan Schott works at Hope College. I'd be curious to talk to her. Then you can seek that person out and kind of have those preparation tools prepared. So asking for those registration lists is not out of the ordinary and perfectly great way to prepare. So Kelly, on the opposite side, a question I get a lot from students is, how do I exit a conversation without being extremely awkward?
Ooh, that's so tough. If you're like, this is not for me. Oh man. I guess, I mean, the frank way to do it would just be say like, you know what, like, I'm so thankful for your time, but I don't know if this is the right fit for me. Like, if you want to be really honest with them, go for it, but be kind and courteous along the way. If you're looking to do it in a way that's a little more gentle, you could always say, thank you. Like when they're done saying their point, like don't interrupt them. If you ask them a question, let them flesh out their answer. And then when they kind of look to you to say the next thing, you could say, you know what, I really appreciated chatting with you, and maybe I'll see you around, but I appreciate your time, and just walk away. If it's in person, right? If it's an informational interview that you're doing over the phone or over video call, just go through with the 15-20 minutes, and that's the least you owe them because you asked them for that time. And then just reach out to them and say, hey, I appreciated learning from you, because you learned that you don't like that thing. That is beneficial. That is like half of what college is for. Not only learning, okay, I like this, but oh, I don't like this. I remember when I worked at Boerigter and I helped people look at internships, and they were just like, oh, what if I don't like it? That's what you're doing your internship for, is to find out if you like it or if you don't. And wouldn't you rather find that out in a summer than in years of a job, right? Like that is what your internships are for. So yeah, I'd say just ride along, be kind and courteous, let them know that you appreciate their time, and walk away.
And I think another thing you can do is like signal like our time is wrapping up if you're doing an informational interview. So say, we were supposed to wrap up at noon and it's 5 till. I might say, hey, Kelly, looks like I have about 5 minutes left of your time. I just want to be respectful of that. I have one more question to ask you. That's going to signal to the alumni like, hey, I'm almost done and we need to wrap this up. And you probably have a commitment at noon. So you can be really black and white with that as well. In person, get a business card. But what I'm hearing nowadays is people don't carry business cards, and they're using LinkedIn as a great way to follow up. So if they say, hey, I don't have any business cards on me, but connect with me on LinkedIn, they are sincerely asking you to do that. So when you get back to your computer, either later that night or the next day, send them a message and say, hey, it was great to meet you at blank event. As you mentioned, you wanted to keep connected. So here's my invitation to do so. So a lot of different strategies you can utilize it that way too.
And I would even say, if that's the case too, if you're going to a networking event and they're like, if no one has business cards, keep a notes tab open on your phone and type their names in right after you talk to them. Because I know if that were me, especially if their name is something where I'm like, I quite don't know how to spell that. Asking them, okay, wait, can I write down your name real quick? How do you spell it? That shows just that little bit of extra care and sincerity of like, I want to get to know you and I'm gonna make a next step. And also it helps you to remember how to spell it and look them up later.
So we have a career fair coming up in a couple of weeks. What are some things, Kelly, that you would recommend students do to continue this networking process, maybe from the lens of a career fair?
So like before the career fair or after the career fair?
How about after the career fair?
After the career fair. I mean, absolutely. If you meet a networking contact or a hiring manager or somebody at the career fair that you like really hit it off with, or you're excited to continue talking to, make sure to follow up with them. And even if that's a list of 1 or 15 different people, like, be sure to check in with all those people, because like we said earlier, they're there to meet you and they want to meet you. So be sure to do that. And let's say you go to the career fair and you learn about a company that you've literally never heard of, but you're like, wow, I think I can see myself applying for something there. Do your research and maybe go onto LinkedIn or the Hope College Connection and see if you know anyone within, or you can find anyone who works there or has worked there, and reach out to them and say, hey, I would just love to learn more about what it's like to work at this place. I've just went to a career fair where I was introduced to a hiring manager there, and seems like it could be a good fit. Seems like, right? It leaves it open for you to find out yes or no. But yeah, I would say just continue doing your research and be really attentive during the career fair of things that intrigue you and don't intrigue you. Because like I said earlier, even if you learn, oh, you know what, I thought I would like that company, but I don't think I do, it at least steers you towards the direction of what you do like.
Yeah, I would love to underscore that too. I think a lot of people go into networking conversations thinking that there's going to be something positive that comes of it, and that's 90% of the time. But I think what's more valuable is that 10% that you learn that, heck no, I'm not applying for that job. That company sounds like they have high turnover, or they're going to be on a hiring freeze. That's good information for you to know. And if you don't like something, you're not going to offend anybody. That's the whole point of unraveling that information as well. Looks like we got another question. What is more preferable, email or a LinkedIn message? Give you a second to think about that, Kelly. I think my initial um, preference, if you have an email, that gets you directly to that person. If someone's not on LinkedIn a lot or doesn't have their preferences set up to alert them, there could be a little bit of a delay. Doesn't mean they're not going to respond, but I know people who aren't actively job searching may tend to not be on LinkedIn as much during their work week. If you want more of a quicker response direct to that person, email can be helpful. Now, if you don't have their email contact information, LinkedIn is a great way to do that. But also know the circumstances. So, like if you were at a virtual networking event and they weren't giving out contact information, LinkedIn would be a great way to do that and say, hey, like I saw you speak at this event, or thanks for sharing your insight on this panel as well. And a lot of people, if they've just spoken at a panel or participated in some event, I'm more likely to go to LinkedIn the next couple of days just because that stuff happens pretty relatively shortly after as well. So I think it just depends on the circumstance. As somebody who's had undergrads reach out to me, I prefer email, but it's going to be different from person to person. So even just ask like, hey, I'd love to follow up with you. Do you have an email I can grab, or would you like me to send you a message on LinkedIn? And people will tell you what they prefer as well.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I honestly, for me personally, I feel the same about both, but I think that's mostly because I get all of my LinkedIn notifications to my email anyway. So if someone sends me a message, like I don't check LinkedIn every day myself out of like my own habit, but if someone sends me a message or asks me to connect, I get an email about it. So that kind of triggers me to go and look there. So either works for me. And I totally agree with Megan. If you have their email, that's totally the most personal way you can reach out to them. And hopefully you acquired it by some means, right? It wasn't just like random. So if you got their email and they don't really know you, be sure to identify how you found their email, whether it was through some alumni database or, hey, I'm friends with this person who said I should talk to you. To make sure to establish that, because sometimes I would say personally, if I didn't know you and you were emailing me out of the blue and didn't explain how you got my email, I'd probably be just a little creeped out. Whereas LinkedIn, if you connect with me and we're just like, I'm a Hope student, bam, okay, I totally know what you're doing. I know where you're coming from and I'm not creeped out at all. So that would be my one caveat with email, but otherwise you probably got their email in a not weird way. Just say how you got it if they haven't met you before. But yeah, I feel comfortable with either email or LinkedIn, but Megan makes a great point that there are some people who are never on LinkedIn. So email is probably the safest bet.
And there's going to be some good context clues on LinkedIn. If their profile is not super filled out, they're most likely just using it for other purposes. So, and that's not to say there are plenty of people who just go through the motions with their profile, but that could be one context clue of, hey, I would probably want to send this person a message and go through another route. You could also drop your email in the LinkedIn message to say, hey, Kelly, I'm a current Hope College student. I would love to connect with you for an informational interview. If you're willing, would you mind sending me an email at this email? And Kelly can easily follow up and say, hey, like, thanks for your LinkedIn message. Glad we can get connected off the platform. So there's a lot of different strategies, but the biggest thing is always follow up. So no matter which platform you use or method that you use, following up is really important. you guys have had some great questions. We have a couple more minutes for questions, so feel free to drop those into the chat. But Kelly, any last words of wisdom you want to share with the students on the call?
I guess I would say just know that as a Hope College student, you have a lot to offer any company, and something that I noted when I worked in the Boerigter Center and as a Hope student, and now even post-grad notice it even more, is that when Hope College students come to interview for internships or jobs, there's so many wonderful skills and talents and experiences that you offer, but sometimes you don't have the confidence with that to say, hey, I do have this skill. Hey, I can bring this to your team. So just be willing to advocate for yourself in that manner whenever you go into any conversation. Don't be afraid to say, hey, you know what, I have worked on a project that's related to data management or whatnot. And that's something that a lot of students at state schools are being encouraged to, brag on, hey, brag on this experience, brag on that class, brag on that project. And Hope students have so many wonderful experiences to brag on too. And I think some of it's rooted in our own humility and our own kindness to say, oh, well, I won't, I want to be nice and I don't want them to think that I'm full of myself. But there's definitely a level of balance of knowing your worth and knowing what you can bring to the company that I think a lot of people will appreciate. So know that you're worth it. And if you have a hard time honing in on what those talents and skills are for you that you can talk about in job interviews or internship interviews, that's what the Boerigter Center is for, is to really help you go through what those skills and talents are for you so that you can practice identifying them in an interview setting.
Awesome. So last but not least, connect with us. Networking can also happen on social media platforms. So we have a presence there as well. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account. I highly recommend, if you're on Instagram, hop over there. We're popping over some great information, event promotion, you name it, even featuring some alumni like Kelly. So please connect with us. And like we said, in the slide deck, we will have that sent to all students along with the recording. Kelly's information is in there and she would love to connect with you. So thanks for joining us today. Next week is the last week workshop. They're going to go over everything you need to know about the upcoming career fair, from setting up your schedule, signing up to talk to those employers, practicing these networking skills we're learning today. So we hope you'll join us. All you need to do is head back into Handshake to schedule or reserve your spot for those events. And last but not least, Kelly, thank you for joining us today. You had so much helpful insight. And I'm sure students look forward to using your skills that you shared in the future.
Oh, it was so great to be here, and I'm so thankful for the chance to talk with students. I actually had the chance to talk with an advanced PR class last week in the comm department, and it was so lovely. I'm so thankful for the chance. So thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. That's it for today, and we hope to see you next week.